Woo! Here we go again. It's another episode of the Outlaw of College Football. And get right into it here. Tonight we're going to talk about the meetings that took place between the college football commissioners and whatnot. They had a committee tonight. As you know, they signed off on a 5+7 model yesterday, but now they're ironing out the final details. And it seems like, from what I'm hearing from numerous sources like Dennis Dodd and Josh Pate and even the Monty Show, they've been saying that the Big Ten and the SEC may make a power move tonight that might change college football forever. They look like they're going to try to probably get more spots, as well as possibly even thinking about expanding the playoff even further from 12 to maybe 14 or 16 or possibly 24 teams as well. Now, tonight I'm going to bring in Justin Walker from Kuz's Corner. He's pretty good at doing the whole expansion and conference realignment talk. And while this isn't conference realignment talk, it is an expansion of sorts because we're looking at the playoff probably expanding in 2026. And if it doesn't expand and go the way the Big Ten and the SEC want it to, like numerous sources have said, what's the rest of college football going to do about it? I mean, is there anything they can really do about it if the SEC and Big Ten make unfair demands? I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC's already threatened that they might secede from the NCAA if they don't get their way. But I'm going to bring Kuz in right now because he has a pretty good handle on these kind of things. So let's welcome in Justin Walker from Kuz's Corner. How's it going, brother?
What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
All right, man. I appreciate you joining me tonight. I know you
absolutely.
You really this is one of your wheelhouse type topics. So I just wanted to bring you in here and maybe you can fill us in and give us a few nuggets on what's going down and whether the SEC and the Big Ten are basically trying to be bullies and strong on the rest of college football tonight.
Well, that's what, a lot of people were reporting and speculating on before they went into the meetings today, which, we're recording this on Wednesday. So, yeah, I mean, but yesterday that Dennis Dodd report came out and there were some speculation that the SEC and the Big Ten could play hardball and if you want to use the word bully a little bit, or at least start making some demands that, hey, we want unequal voting, unequal or weighted voting rather, where they get more of a vote. Their vote carries more weight. They want more teams in. There's been talk that they want at least 4 teams from each league in to get automatic bids into the CFP. I mean, there's 80 or 12 spots now, right? If it stays at 12, they want more. They want a bigger piece of the revenue. And the thing is, I mean, the way the revenue is going to be distributed, it's going to be based on how many teams you get in anyway. So they're already going to get more revenue by having more teams in if it goes that route. And then they want a bigger percentage too. I mean, all this obviously speculation. We don't know exactly what they're asking for. It did come out today after the meetings. Chris Vanini from The Athletic reported that they did talk today. When the commissioners met today, they did talk about expanding to 14 or even 16 teams beginning in 2026. So that is on the table. So we may only see a 12-team playoff for a couple of years, and then it may expand again.
Right. So it reminds me of the NCAA basketball tournament and how it kept expanding for a few years. And they basically settled in on what is it now, 68 teams?
Yes, and they're talking about expanding that again.
Yeah, I know, right? It's almost like participation trophies, right?
It's getting that way.
But another thing in this whole thing that nobody's really thinking about, I think, is Notre Dame. Notre Dame, from the setup that I've seen, Notre Dame is going to be at a distinct disadvantage, which I'll be honest with you, that don't hurt my feelings in the least, because for a number of years they've sort of tried to be holier than thou, not to really make pun at their religion, but they never not want to join the conference and keep their independence and at the same time have their cake and eat it too with the ACC and the other sports. And it just it's probably irked a lot of people. But this new setup it says that the top 4 seeds that get a bye have to be a conference champion.
Correct.
So Notre Dame's not in the conference.
Right.
So even if Notre Dame were to be the number 1 team in the nation, they wouldn't get a bye.
Right.
I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, my first take is Notre Dame has a person on that committee, and they approved it. So apparently, it doesn't bother them too bad.
And why do you think that is? I think I know why, but I'm going to let you see.
Because I think their independence means so much to them that they're willing to give up a bye. I think as long as they have a spot in the playoff, they're okay with it.
Really?
I do.
I think maybe it's just a prelude to them joining the Big Ten because they got the AAU status all of a sudden. I find it very, very, very convenient that they got the AAU status when all this stuff is happening.
It could be, but Notre Dame did just sign a new TV deal with NBC that goes through 2029. So I don't know why they would have signed that deal if they were planning, unless they just done that as a, hey, just in case we better sign this deal, we can always get out of it type thing. That's possible. But I do think if this goes the way the SEC and Big Ten want it to, where they get all these automatic bids to their leagues, now you're talking about putting pressure on Notre Dame.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Because, the Big 12 and ACC are going to be like, hey, wait a minute. We need some automatic bids too, right? So they're probably going to get a couple each, assuming the ACC survives, obviously.
Exactly.
So let's just theoretically say the SEC and Big Ten do get their 4 automatic bids each. That's 8 teams. Let's say there's a 16-team playoff. There's 80 or 16 teams. Let's say the Big 12 and the ACC demand at least 2. There's 4 more teams. There's what are we at now? 12 teams out of 16?
Right.
With a group of 5 is going to want a team in. There's another team. That only leaves 3 at-large bids for Notre Dame to get.
Right.
So right now with the way it's set up with the 5 plus 7, there's going to be 7 at-large bids. A lot better chance to get in with 7 than if you only have 3 or 4.
Well, that's probably why Notre Dame would favor going to 16 teams because they give them more chances if that did come to pass.
If they do at-larges, if they don't do all these automatic bids, that's the thing. If it's automatic bids, if each conference gets guaranteed so many teams in, then you better get yourself in a conference, right?
Well, some people think it's just delaying the inevitable, that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to eventually break off anyway, and then they're just going to cherry pick the Big 12 and the ACC, and the rest of them is just going to be left to fend for themselves and maybe a newer version of 1AA, as I discussed in a previous podcast.
And that's very possible. Absolutely possible, especially if they don't get what they want.
What do you think that number would be, 40, 48?
I think it all depends on what the networks want, but I would say it's probably going to be 40, maybe 48, but I'm just not sure. See, right now, the expanded 12-team playoff is going to be worth about $1.3 billion. Well, this 12-team playoff plus all the New Year's 6 games are worth about $600 million. So you're getting 4 times more games. Well, not really 4, but about double the games. Not even double the games, really. You're only getting, I'm trying to do some quick math in my head, and I'm not good at that. But you basically, in a nutshell, you get 3 times more games, but only twice the money for it. Right now, the way the money sets up, when they go from 4 to 12. You go from 4 games to 12 games, but yet the payout only goes from, 500 or 600 million up to 1.3 billion. So that math don't add up. But the reason that is because the networks aren't willing to pay a lot of money for that first round because there's a group of 5 team in it is what they're saying in the articles I've read. They don't want to pay for that group of 5 game. They don't want to pay to see Liberty play Oregon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. I mean,
I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's the networks and what they see value in. So my point of that is it's going to depend on how much value they see in a team like Kansas or North Carolina or West Virginia or whoever. Just pick a team in the Big 12 or the ACC. I think North Carolina's going to get in anyway, so that was probably a bad example, but you get my point. What kind of value are they going to put on those teams, and are they going to be willing to pay more money for them to be in that league and with the quote unquote halves of college football?
I'll tell you something else that they was talking about that I halfway like is the fact that the first round games would be on campus.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking to myself, and they said this on it might have been the Monty show. I know you don't really care for that show too much, but they were saying
I'll still watch it occasionally.
they were saying that, you know, people that get a bye into the first round may be a little irked that they don't get a home game, you know, on campus. They're having to play a neutral site game.
Right.
So my thing was, and they're like, how would you get around that? My thing is, why don't you just have the first 2 rounds on campus and then the final 4 just be neutral sites? And they're talking about, all these other big New Year's Six bowls would want their cut. And I'm just like, the New Year's Six bowl thing is just going to have to go by the wayside eventually, in my opinion.
Well, and it might, but there's, again, the organizations, the companies who sponsor those New Year's Six games pay a lot of money to do it. I'm not sure if they want to give that up. You know what I mean? I guess at the end of the day, it's going to depend on, are they willing to pay you more than what, doing away with it would pay you basically for a home game. Because if you do it in a home game, I'm not sure there's going to be a bowl tie-in attached to it. You know what I'm saying? That's
right. Big Homie's Killer with a $2 super chat says, don't forget to share, subscribe, add, and multiply. That is true. If you'll just jump out real quick and then jump back in, it won't take you but 5 seconds to smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do that. Big Homie's Kelly with another $2 super chat says, also to get your comments read, send it in super chats like he just did. You just click on the little money dollar sign at the bottom and write your comment out first, and then click that send button a second time, because if you don't, you won't get your comment read. You just send a blank. So I know your team, West Virginia, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they stand in all this? I mean, I know back in the day they really wanted ACC admission, but now it looks like the ACC may be the next conference to fall. And this is it's just ironic to me, because it wasn't but 2 or 3 short years ago the Big 12 looked like the team that was going to go by the wayside and become extinct. And the Pac-12 missed the boat on that. And now you have what you have, and the ACC looks like they may be about to fall apart as well. So where's teams like West Virginia stand? Is this looks like it may end up going to the Big 2?
Yeah, I mean, if it does go to the Big 2, obviously West Virginia, team like West Virginia, who would probably be just on the cutting line potentially, if they go to a 48 team. I think if it goes to 48, I think West Virginia would probably get in. I don't see 48 teams being more valuable than West Virginia. Maybe I'm wrong, but if it stops at 40, then I'm concerned. I'm not sure they get in. So if I'm Wren Baker, Gordon Gee, the powers that be at West Virginia, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure West Virginia is in a position to get that call when the time comes, if they go to a Super League. And if they do decide to pick off a few more Big 12 and ACC teams, I want to be one of those teams. I mean, and I hate to say it, it's kind of one of those deals where if you can't beat them, join them, Yeah. I mean, we're all kind of pissed off at the Big 10 and SEC for throwing their weight around, but yet we want to be in their league. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know that if there might be some fans out there who say they don't want to be in the SEC or Big 10, but I would probably question whether they're being honest if they say that they don't, to be honest. But anyway.
Yeah, it's I'm an Alabama fan and I'm an SEC guy, but I really don't like how this is going. I'll be honest with you. I like the parity, well, not parity, it's not really parity, the variety of college football, the different venues and whatnot. To me, all that makes it more special than the NFL, and that's why I don't watch the NFL, because it's so microcosm down, it's so commercial that I can't really enjoy it as much. That's just me, though.
Well, I mean, that's what we love about college football, right? Is the passion of the fan bases. You always feel like your team has a shot, at least at least most teams, if you're in a power conference. That's going away. So it's kind of a shame. But I'll be honest with you though. I know I hear a lot of my Big 12 people may not like me saying this, but I get a lot of them say, "Well, we'll just quit watching it." No, you're not. You're not going to quit watching it.
What are you going to do, man? I already quit watching NFL. I mean, what are we going to do now? Watch junior high ball on a Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a diehard college football fan, Now, if you're a diehard fan of one of the teams that gets left out, you might stop watching it.
That's right.
But here's the thing. They're catering now. I think what they're trying to do is cater to the casual fans out there. And let's not forget the impact sports betting, I think, has on this whole thing. There are a lot of people who sit down to watch college games on Saturdays who probably don't even really care who wins. But they might have $100 placed on that game, so they're going to watch it. You know, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough is the impact of gambling. That's where a lot of the money. That's why it's so much more valuable now than it was, 10, 20 years ago, is because of all the sports betting now that's happening and taking place. It's brought a lot of casual fans to the table, and they don't give a crap if it's they don't have any loyalty. A lot of them don't, right? So they're going to watch Alabama and Ohio State. They're going to watch Georgia and Oregon, or Oregon and whoever. Now, if you're a diehard team of West Virginia or Kansas State or Duke or whoever, you might boycott and say, I'm not watching them. But that's such a small percentage of people in the grand scheme of things. Is it really going to make a difference? I don't know. What do you think, Outlaw? Do you think it would make a difference?
What's that?
If fans of teams who get left out stop watching the big boys, let's say if all Big 12 fans and all ACC fans stopped watching Big 10 and SEC football, do you think it would hurt it any?
It might hurt it a little bit, but not to the point where they would really care.
Right. That's my point. Yeah. So you agree with me then?
They got the bigger brands and even fans of other teams. Like, for example, we had a real rich booster named Logan Young at Alabama. Mm-hmm. He was a Vanderbilt graduate, but he supported Alabama athletics. So you have a lot of that, where teams like, an example like Baylor, people that root for Baylor and Waco probably also root for someone like Michigan or Alabama too on the side. Probably just as much as they do Baylor, because more likely Baylor's never going to win a national championship in college football.
It's fair. I mean, I'm not like that. I mean, I like West Virginia basically and nobody else, but I will watch a game. If a good game's on, I'll sit and watch it, and I want to watch the SEC championship game. It's a good game usually, so I don't know, man. I'm like you. I think it might hurt it, but I don't think it's going to hurt it enough to.
Yeah. I'd said something the other day. It might have been on one of your podcasts in the comment section. I'd said something about, I thought, that this was going to hurt college football in the long term. And you was like, well, it's more popular now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really realize that. I didn't really think about it before I said it, but you made that point, and you're right. But I still think maybe in the long term, are we not going to oversaturate this thing and just, squeeze too much money out of the fans and the alumni?
No, because, well, maybe out of the fans and the alumni. But again, I mean, if I'm a fan of, I'm just going to keep using my team as an example because it's easy. If West Virginia gets left out, I'm not going to stop watching West Virginia just because they're not in the Power 2 or whatever. I'm still going to watch their games, and I'm still going to cheer for them. I'm probably still going to go to games. You know what I'm saying? So those people are still going to watch their teams play. They just may not watch the other games. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think and when you look at the TV networks, there are so many. I mean, you've already got ESPN, you've already got Fox, you got CBS who's in it now, NBC's in it now, and they all want to keep airing live sports content, and some of them want more live sports content. I mean, and now you've got the streaming services getting on board. Like, I mean, heck, Netflix is going to have WWE now. It won't be long. They'll probably be trying to get college football or NFL or whatever. Amazon's getting into the live sports game now. I mean,
George Kliavkoff was sort of angling at something like that, wasn't he? Before, the Pac-12 just melted down on him. Mm-hmm. Maybe George Kliavkoff had a notion of something, and maybe he ain't the idiot we thought he was.
Well, that's what I made a comment, I think, on somebody else's video one time about when that whole announcement came down a couple of weeks ago that ESPN and Fox and Warner Brothers are going to merge and form their own streaming service or whatever. I'm like, we all laughed at the Pac-12 because they were going to be on streaming, and now everybody's going to be on streaming. So it's
exactly that's what I'm saying. Fred Bagley makes a comment here. He has his badge. He's deputized. He says, I say it's already watered down with 12 teams. I do not think we need any more than 8 teams after the form of a super conference. You think it's watered down with 12 teams? You think they should have maybe just
me personally, no, I don't think it's watered down personally, but you got to realize I'm a fan of a team who needs to get in, and the more teams in, the better chance we get. So I'm probably not the right person to ask, but of course, at the end of the day, it's all going to depend on how they format the thing. You know, are they going to let 3 or 4 G5 teams in it? I do think the G5 deserves a shot, but I don't think you need to have more than 1 or 2 teams in it. You know?
Right. I think it's good that you have 12, maybe even 16, because it allows for the Big Ten and the SEC to be spoiled and get their extra teams in, but at the same time, it'll still allow teams like West Virginia a chance too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you think that sounds about right? What
was that again? I missed the first part of the question. I didn't really understand it.
I was saying that the Big Ten and the SEC, if they went to 16 teams, the Big Ten and the SEC could have their way, you know, throw the little tantrum and be a little spoiled brat, bully, whatever you want to call them, and they could get their extra spots. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, with it being 12 or 16, you would get teams in that deserve to be in from the Big 12 and the SEC.
Well, hopefully, yes. If they format it in a way that allows for that, that's going to be the big question mark: is how many teams?
Go ahead.
If they say, hey, we're going to get 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten, and then the rest are at-large bids, then that just means more SEC and Big Ten, right? At the end of the day.
Well, that's probably what the SEC was trying to angle for. And like some SEC guy, but that's not – I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's fair, man.
Yeah, the SEC wants all at-large bids, they've said.
Well, I can see – yeah, I bet they do. I could see, 2 guaranteed spots for those 2. But 4 is a little much, man.
Here, my opinion on it, I think
you could probably get them in anyway. Is that large teams?
Right, exactly.
So why are you bitching? Why are you complaining?
Here's what I think they're doing. I think they're using that. When you negotiate with somebody, you don't go in asking for exactly what you'll accept. You go in you ask for something better, and then you end up meeting somewhere in the middle, right? And I think that's what's going on here. At the end of the day, they'll probably end up getting 3 in, or maybe 2, and then they do more at-larges. I don't know. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to get most of what they want, but probably not everything. Everybody's going to have to give a little bit.
I Am Sooner has a question for you, so I'll let you read that out if you can see it.
It says, hey, Coos, on what you said about 40 or 48 teams in, I know Pitt is an old rival. So on the borderline, does West Virginia get in or Pitt? That's actually a good question, and that's one of the reasons I had to have you repeat your question, because I was reading that comment, and I suck at doing 2 things at once. But anyway, I think it depends. And the reason I say that is if it comes down to which conference needs more teams, if it's the SEC, I think they take West Virginia over Pitt tomorrow.
That's right.
But if it's the Big Ten, because they got to have AAU, Pitt gets in because Pitt's AAU.
Yeah, that and Pitt to them would probably fit their culture. I hate that word.
Yeah. I think West Virginia gets in if it goes. I think West Virginia would get in over Pitt in general. But if it comes down, if the Big Ten has to say the Big Ten's desperate and they need to add one more team, and it comes down to West Virginia or Pitt, I'd say they're taking Pitt, because even though they say AAU is not a requirement, from everything I've heard, the majority of the schools want it.
Well, they're going to make them have it anyway. It's like Notre Dame. I mean, you discussed this ad nauseum. They're not really a research institution, but they put the AAU label on so that they could do this, I think.
Yeah.
So they could have Notre Dame in the conference and not piss off their academia segment. Kilbree says he thinks that WVU will be in the top 40 if it's even 40, is what Kilbree says.
Man, I hope so. I think there's a chance, but it's going to be a lot harder. We might be the 40th team. You know what I mean?
Only right-wing Duck fans.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. What's the old saying? I'd rather have a shack in heaven than a mansion in hell, right?
That's right. Well, it's just like with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I mean, it's like they always said that they were joined at the hip, but when it come to, hey, you're in or you're going to be out, Oklahoma said, we're in. Y'all out. Sorry.
Yeah.
See ya. Bedlam is gone. Y'all can keep that trophy to infinity and beyond, like Buzz Lightyear, if you want to. The only right-wing duck says that the Saudis will end up buying college sports. I don't know if he's trying to be funny and troll, but that could actually probably happen one day.
Well,
they buy everything else.
They're already in live sports in America, so I mean they own part of the PGA Tour now.
They got their hands in professional wrestling too, don't they? A lot.
Gosh, I hope not.
Behind the scenes with WWE, they've had so many events over in Saudi Arabia.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know if they'll keep doing that now though with TKO taking over, but they might. With Florida State now looking to do that, a lot of people thought the Saudis were going to come in when, and myself included, when it was announced that Florida State was looking to bring private equity money in to help buy their way out of the ACC, basically. A lot of people were like, man, they're going to be using Saudi money to get out. Well, it comes to find out it's not Saudi money that they're going to be using, I don't think. But like you said, behind the scenes, you don't really know whose money it is, do you? No. It might say J.P. Morgan Chase on the front of the building or whatever, or whatever company you want to throw out there, but or BlackRock or whoever. But at the end of the day, we don't know when you follow that line of money, where does it end? We don't really know.
Right. Well, it's just like the NIL thing. It's like I've said before, here in Tuscaloosa, they could probably get Tuscaloosa Toyota to wink, give a recruit an NIL deal just from the encouragement from the University of Alabama to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really coming from Alabama instead of Toyota. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Big Cojones Kelly's sort of expounding on something we talked about earlier. Imagine a number 1 ranked Notre Dame team gets a 5th seed because of no conference championship.
Yeah, I mean, but they voted for it. They knew that was part of the deal. Notre Dame cares so much about being independent. They're willing to give up that. But something somebody else pointed out earlier is they also don't have a conference championship game to play the week before either. So they kind of get an automatic bye before the playoff.
Kilbrace had a funny response to that. He said, imagine a gold cat flying out of your ass. That will happen before Notre Dame's number 1. Instead of the Golden Domers, they're the Golden Cats.
That's right. Golden Cats. That was a good one. I don't know where he came up with that one. He's got a wild imagination.
That's a zinger there. You had to put that gold in there too.
Yep. I don't think Notre Dame's one of those teams. If you're not a Notre Dame fan, you pretty much hate them. Like there's not a lot in between.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought their helmets were cool. I always liked that all gold helmet. But
I think it's goofy.
What gets me is and this will be a shot at Killer and Big Cojones Kelly. LSU fans will tell me that their helmets their colors are gold and purple. I'm like, man, your helmet's yellow. No, that's mustard gold. I'm like, man, no, it's not. That shit's yellow. Well, there ain't really any gold helmets in college football. I'm like, really? What about Notre Dame and Boston College and Army?
Yeah.
There's gold helmets. Y'all just must be colorblind. That ain't mustard gold. That's corn dog yellow.
I hear you.
See what they got for that. That'd give me.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia's colors are old gold and blue, but old gold kind of has a yellowish hue to it, but it ain't really yellow. It's like a dark, deep yellow. You know what I mean? But when you go, sometimes you find a lot of the West Virginia apparel you buy is not really their school colors, though. It's just yellow, So
in the end, where do you think this all ends up, man?
Gosh,
where do you think let's say 5 years from now, where do you think college football is going to be? Where do you think the numbers are going to be as far as teams in the playoffs?
I think you'll have 16 teams in the playoffs. I think the SEC and Big Ten will have most of those spots, and I think the ACC and Big if the ACC is still around, we'll still have maybe 1 or 2 teams in it, and that'll be it. And they're going to be holding on for dear life, trying to compete. But the Big Ten and the SEC are going to pretty much win all the national championships. That's what I think.
All right. And I think the ACC, the teams that they added, man, I'm really not really impressed with how they did it. The way your commissioner did it, was pretty epic. The way he handled that whole situation and how he come in and saved a sinking ship was a pretty good way. The way he handled the whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're happy about it. I mean, there's a few things we haven't agreed with everything he's done, but I think for the most part he's done a really good job. You know, he's one of the people being I guess out in front about trying to expand the NCAA tournament, and that's for obvious reasons. I mean, the Big 12 is considered by many to be the top basketball league in America, and he thinks they can get more teams in. But at the end of the day, I mean, basketball, you're talking about 5 million versus 50 million. You know what I mean? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
Compared to football. So is getting one or two more teams in the NCAA tournament really worth blowing up the whole sport? I don't, or not the whole sport, but the whole tournament. Right. The NCAA tournament, man, is like every sports fan's favorite time of year.
Yeah, it's almost like
you're going to screw that up.
It's almost like the Super Bowl and WrestleMania, you know?
Yeah, it's huge.
Even people don't normally watch it will watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like WrestleMania. People that don't really watch wrestling that much will watch WrestleMania. Same thing with the Super Bowl, even though I didn't watch it. That kind of.
Hey, I hate to. I'm going to give you something that you probably already read this, but did you know that this was the most watched Super Bowl of all time?
Yeah. I don't know. If you say so.
I bet that pissed you off, didn't it? When you
I didn't know that until you told me. Now I'm a little aggravated.
123 million people.
Yeah. And they're watching Taylor Swift.
That's what I read. I think that's what I read.
There's a bunch of Swifties watching it probably.
It didn't hurt. I'll be honest with you. It didn't hurt at all.
My question is, when Taylor Swift and oh boy part ways, and they probably will part ways because that's the way celebrities are. Does that crowd of people that watched football go away? I think it does.
Some of them will, but there'll be a few that stay on. And see, that's what they wanted. They want, if they can just snag a few extra fans, a few thousand or a few million extra fans, whatever, then they've done their job by showing her 34 times or whatever they did. But anyway, I didn't want to get you sidetracked on that. But
yeah, I don't. Since
you brought up Super Bowl, I had to mention it. But no, I don't know. Did I answer your question? Where will it end up? I think we'll end up, with the playoff. But I think at the end of the day, we'll end up probably in the next 10 years. We'll probably have a Super League with the SEC and the Big Ten and about 40 to 48 teams. And what's left of the ACC and Big 12 will kind of do their own thing. And I'll be honest with you, if it comes to that, I actually wouldn't have an issue with the ACC and Big 12 just breaking away and doing their own thing anyway. Right. If they don't get invited to the party.
Well, they're both coast-to-coast conferences too.
Yeah.
They don't like they're microcosm down to one region.
It wouldn't be, a lot of fans would be mad at first, and I wouldn't like it at first either. But think about it: if you're playing in a league you've got all ACC teams and all Big 12 teams, maybe you bring up a couple of the top group of 5 teams that are still out there that are worthy. Add, like a Boise State, for example, maybe a Tulane, maybe a South Florida. You throw them in the mix. You have your own league, and you crown your own champion. There would be no shame at all in beating teams like Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, Syracuse, Kansas State, Iowa State, West Virginia, Stanford, Cal, SMU. What would be so bad about that?
Nothing really.
But everybody's up in arms about it. I mean, I was at first until I sit back and thought about it. I'm like, that's who we play in our conference or teams like that anyway.
No, it's not like the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to make it fair for y'all anyway.
Exactly. So why when's the last time outside of Clemson and Florida State, who else has won a national championship in the college football playoff era?
Well, is it possible that the ACC could sort of do something like the Big Ten did? They went out there and took 2 West Coast teams, like the Big Ten took USC and UCLA, and then they sat back and waited. Now that everything's fell into somewhat of a place, is it possible now that the ACC will go out there and add Oregon State and Washington State to go as travel partners with Stanford and California, sort of like the Big Ten did?
I don't think so. I think if they were going to do that, they would have done it the last time when they added Stanford and Cal, honestly. I just don't think those two schools, and I hate to say this because they have awesome fans, but for the most part, their fans are awesome. But they're very passionate, just like we are. But I just don't think they bring enough value to the table from a TV rating standpoint, from a fan base standpoint. They're kind of a geographic outliers to a degree. I mean, and it kind of hurt them being in the same state as Washington and Oregon, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it did, because those two teams take up most of the fans in those states.
Well, if you want to be harsh about it, you can just say, hey, look, y'all should have been more of a successful program over a period of 100 years.
Yeah.
Like those two were. Those two were the most successful programs over 100 years, and that's what got them in.
Yeah.
Big Coney's Kelly with a $2 donation says, I don't like 3 and 4 lost teams, conference champions, getting a bye over one lost team. And that may happen or it may not happen. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, that's one of the big sticking points. That's why a lot of people would just rather them go at large bids instead of automatic bids.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that winning your conference should mean something. No, he's talking about a buy though. Never mind. He's talking about the buys. Yeah, I'd be down for having that conversation. Maybe winning your league gets you in the playoff, but it doesn't get you a buy.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think 3 or 4 loss conference champion should get in the playoff, but not get a bye. But the way they got it set up, it'll be a bye, and you'll have say a Pittsburgh who loses 3 games and wins the ACC, getting the 4 seed over, I don't know, Notre Dame, maybe, or even an Alabama or Georgia who's in the top 4, because that happens all the time where you have 2 SEC teams up there in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
You would have a 3 or 4 loss Pittsburgh team getting a bye over an Alabama or Georgia team with 1 loss.
It's only for 2 years though. We may not see that. We may not see that format from 2026 on, because the current contract only runs through 2025. So, and in 2026 they're going to be starting from scratch. They can do pretty much whatever they want to. Oh, and another interesting tidbit for those who may not have saw it today, that Chris Vanini that reported on the talking about a 14 and 16 team playoff. They also said they'd like to get everything done in a month.
Yeah, I saw that on the CBS Sports Line that they was talking about that.
Because they're in danger of losing. ESPN's got a deal they've agreed to, but ESPN has threatened, from what I understand, to back out and pull away from the deal if they can't figure out their format and how they're going to do everything.
Yeah, play it. ESPN ain't backing away from that shit. That's the only thing they got left to hold on to, really. Does ESPN do NFL? I don't know. Do they do NFL games?
Yeah, they do. I think one night a week, maybe.
Okay.
Monday Night Football. Right?
I would love that. I would be ecstatic if ESPN pulled out of the SEC, because I can't stand ESPN, man. I'd just rather our games be carried by Fox or somebody else.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would too, but unfortunately, heck, you're 100% at ESPN now, aren't you? SEC is.
Yeah, exactly. I can't stand that.
At least for Big 12, we're only 60. We got 2/3 of our rights are owned by ESPN. The other third is Fox. So we still got Fox in there a little bit.
Killer Breeze with a $4.99 donation says, in 5 years, college football will be bigger than ever, and OU will be on top. On top of what?
Speaking of on top, this is totally off topic, but what do you think about Rhea Ripley's catchphrase, "Mommy's always on top"?
I like it a lot.
Pretty sexy, ain't it?
It is. She's very sexy.
I love it, man.
Man, you're going to get me off track for real. You're going to get me in trouble. I'll just say, man, she's got one of the nicest asses that I've seen in wrestling in quite some time. I like them a little bit bigger,
Me too.
I don't like them too small.
And she looks at that camera with them lips, man. Oh my Lord.
And I just like melting and shit. I'm just like, man, I don't know what to do with that.
She's one of those that would beat you up while you're doing it too, man.
Speaking of wrestling, what do you think about all that? What do you think about them pivoting and putting Cody back in the main event there?
I like it. I mean, I like it, and I like the way they turned Rock heel, which I thought is what they should have done. Yeah. But I tell you, I think Rock could end up turning on Roman at WrestleMania.
I think he might, because I've been seeing some stuff, man, where they were showing that little vintage or whatever he did in the ring, and he was talking about, I'm going to guarantee that you're going to leave WrestleMania loser. And when he said it, he didn't really say Cody, and he sort of pointed at Roman.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
He said it.
See, I didn't catch it. I watched it live, and I didn't catch it when he did it. And then when I watched it back on, I think it was on Twitter, somebody posted it. I thought maybe they were reading too much into it, but the more you think about it, it would make sense, right? Because they still want to do that match.
That's right.
And if you have a year to build for that, they could make that thing massive. I think it could be bigger, actually, if they do it next year.
Really?
Yeah, especially if assuming The Rock stays with it that long. But I mean, think about it. The Rock could get mad about, or I don't know, something could happen. Roman get mad at Rock, Rock get mad at Roman. They fight, fighting over who's the head of the table, right? I mean, I think that's what we all envisioned it. But if you have a whole year to build for it, I think they could potentially make it even bigger.
Yeah, I don't think my son was like, you really think they would make him turn on the bloodline? I'm like, no, I didn't say that. People forget. They act like this is something that couldn't happen. Rock turned on Farouk, who was Ron Simmons, when they had the Nation of Domination. And he turned the entire Nation of Domination on Ron Simmons and took it over himself. And I think that's what he's going to do with the bloodline. The entire bloodline is going to turn on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
Interesting. Or he could team up with what if Jay comes? What if him and Jay team up together or something too? That'd be an interesting storyline too.
I'd be interested too if Cody finished his story, because there's a big story about how his dad had the belt for like a day and they took it away from him, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
And he's trying to finish the story. I know he's going to get real emotional in the ring if he wins that belt. I'd be interested to see if Goldust or Dustin Rhodes shows up.
I'd love that. That would be, to me, that would add another layer to it. And I'll tell you what else. I'll tell you another way they might do this. Rock may not actually turn on him necessarily, but he might, like if Solo tries to interfere, he might stop it or something. Yeah. Not necessarily hit him or turn on him, but say, like, no, you got to let him do this on his own. Right. Or something like that maybe. And then they all get mad, and then then Roman gets mad at him. I don't know. There's so many different ways they could spin this thing, man.
I always thought that Dustin Rhodes should have been given a world championship belt before Cody, because he's the older brother, and he's actually, to me, he's just as good technique-wise and technically speaking. He's really good. But guess I'm gonna let you off here, man. I know you got some packing to do and whatnot.
Yep.
Just wanted to get your thoughts on all this mess that's going on. So I knew you had, sort of in your wheelhouse. So I wanted to pick your brain about it. I appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, tell everybody where they can reach you and find you.
Yeah, I'm on Kuz's Corner on YouTube. It's which my logo's behind me, but you can't really see it all. But it's Kuz's Corner, Couzs Corner on YouTube. I'm on X at Kuz206. I am on Instagram and TikTok too. I just don't get on there a whole lot, but I do have accounts. I'm on Facebook as well. I have a Kuz's Corner Facebook page. You can look me up there. So I was finally able to get back in it after getting hacked. But yeah, so you can find me on pretty much all the social media platforms and YouTube. And I do have a website too, Kuz'sCorner.com. If you're interested in reading up on West Virginia sports at all, that's you can do that over on my website.
All right, brother. If you ain't got anything else, I guess I'm gonna let you go.
That's it, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, thanks for taking the time.
Yes, sir.
And that was Justin Walker from Kuz's Corner, JD Wilmoff's favorite podcast of all time, or as me and Kuz like to call you, JD Big Mouth. Get a few of these comments. Big Cajones Kelly says Gary Danielson used to suck Alabama's elephant trunk. I disagree with that. Gary Danielson used to piss me off because he was constantly trying to berate and find a way to screw Alabama out of victory. Maybe everybody thinks that about Gary Danielson. Gary Danielson had this special way of just irking just about everybody in the SEC. Whether it be the LSU Corn Dogs, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Auburn Barn Monkeys, the Tennessee, whatever they want to call themselves these days, all of them. The Georgia Hedge Pissers. He had a way of pissing everybody off. Seems like me and Gary Danielson got something in common, huh? But y'all got any more questions? If there's any other topics you want me to touch on real quick before I get out of here, let me know what's up. Throw me a comment down in the comment section. Also, if you want to be in the Outlaw Posse, you'll see these people in here with their badges. Killer Breeze, Big Cajones Kelly, Fred Bagley. They're all in the mix here. All you got to do is hit that join button next to the subscribe button. It's $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. That's just a bottle of water. You'll get your badge. You'll get deputized. And you'll probably be one of the random 4 horsemen shout-outs that they give on the podcast. And it's also on the scroll down here, as well as possibly be the comment of the day. So, with that, I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.